Yo, what's going on, everyone? This is Zach, and we are following up on the previous video that we put out on how I went full-time on YouTube with less than 30,000 subscribers and less than 200,000 views per month. And the whole purpose of this series on this channel is to help those of you out there who may be looking to do the same, who maybe just want to provide, maybe similar content to what I'm doing. Maybe you want to help other people, inspire other people, grow an audience, grow a brand, whatever that case may be. That's the purpose behind this. And I'm going to give you my experience, my knowledge, and tell you guys what I did and how this worked for me to be successful in doing what I'm doing. Now, we have to go back, though. We have to understand some key aspects to this entire thing, to the entire process. And the most obvious and sometimes impossible thing to understand is the content and audience. So you can be somebody who wants to be successful, who wants to be an influencer, who wants to maybe do a podcast, do a YouTube channel. You want to do that type of content, right? But what is that type of content? What type of content are you going to create? That is sometimes the most difficult question to answer. Now, I can say this because when I first got the idea of doing this, when I had that influence from the person I worked with who was telling me, man, you should do this, you would be really good at it, I didn't know what I was going to do. And it took me weeks. It took me weeks to figure out exactly what it was I was going to do. And we talked about this before. I just wanted to help people with really simple IT stuff, real basic things. And, I didn't go stay down that route, but that was part of the determination. That was part of figuring out what it is that I wanted to do, the type of content that I wanted to create. Sometimes it takes going back to the drawing board multiple times to fine tune your content, to really figure out what that message is that you want people to see. So whether you guys are looking to create, again, content similar to mine or other types of influential content, or you're looking to start some type of gaming YouTube channel or some type of comedy related YouTube channel, it's all very similar. There's always a starting point, which is, what is that type of content? Because that is a really, it sounds like a very simple and obvious question, but it's very hard. It's very, very hard. So then once you kind of figure out your content, whatever that is, like I said, comedy, whether it's doing gaming, whether you're trying to help people, you want to do IT stuff, whatever that case is. Once you have that narrowed down, there's a next step involved, which really is the next hardest part of this entire thing. Who is your target audience? You can determine what type of content you want to create. Say you wanted to be a gaming channel, right? You want to play games. Well, let's use, for instance, Fortnite, because it's so popular, right? You want to play Fortnite. You want to start a YouTube channel, a Twitch channel, and play Fortnite all the time. Who's your target audience? I mean, it should be pretty obvious who your target audience is. Now, you would think that it's going to be, your kids who are, anywhere from like 6 to 12, 13, 14 years old maybe. And that's your target audience. But that's a very saturated market. There's a lot of people doing that same exact thing. So how do you make it different? How do you stand out from that? How do you provide a clear message on what it is that you're going to do specifically to either reach those specific kids, that specific target audience, or do you go for a different target audience? Because in reality, there are adults who play Fortnite. Do you go for that audience? Do you make your theme more adult oriented? Is that your target audience? Is that who you want it to be? Is that how you want to brand and evolve, your channel, your whole entire content strategy? That's a really hard decision to make sometimes. So that's why when you are thinking about the content that you want to make, you always have to think of who that target audience is. Because sometimes when you figure out what that content is and you start figuring out who that target audience is, you may not want to directly speak to that target audience. You may not be able to speak to that target audience. Me, for instance, I'm 35 years old. If I were to say I'm going to start a Fortnite channel and my target audience is going to be kids, well, I'm not a kid, and I honestly think that would be pretty weird if I were to target kids, but I would have no idea what interests, they have. It would take a lot of work for me to figure that out. Not to mention, again, I think it would be a little bit weird, but it's a whole nother story. So I would have to go back to the drawing board, maybe completely. Maybe I'm not going to play Fortnite, because my target audience, who would probably be the best and do the best for me, just isn't going to work for me specifically because I don't know who my target audience is. So sometimes, again, you're figuring out that content. The audience who you want to speak to is just as important as that content. So as you guys are figuring out what it is that you really want to do, what type of content you want to create, that audience, I cannot stress that enough. And I'm going to use IT career questions as an example. It took me quite a few tries, right? Quite a few times of going back to the drawing board to really hone in on who my targeted audience was, and even figuring out what my content was. It was really, putting together one video on getting into IT and seeing that work, and then repeating that process a couple times, evolving that process, fine-tuning it to really figure out this is my content. And with that, I was figuring out who my audience was. I'm talking about getting into IT. Who's my target audience? People who are looking to get into IT, right? I mean, that sounds pretty obvious, but there's a very targeted niche right there. And the ages do range, and the demographics range, and it ranges from male to female. But the audience is all there for one thing, and that's learning and understanding how they can get into IT. So my message, which had to be very abundantly clear, was if you're looking to get into IT, then I am the perfect resource for you. I'm going to give you all the knowledge, advice, skills, everything that it takes to become an IT professional. So if you are that person who's looking to get in this field, then I'm your person, right? That was my message. And I relayed that message, I think, very clearly to my target audience. And I think that's partly how I became so successful, was understanding my content, understanding what it was that my target audience wanted to see, and also understanding who my target audience is. And I hope this makes sense, because honestly, you may feel like this is a very obvious questions to ask yourself. And you may think that you have this figured out as you're going into starting your own channel, your own podcast, whatever it is. But I assure you, this can be the most difficult process, the most difficult part of starting something like this. Because if you don't know who your target audience is and you don't know your content, well, as you start building and growing, if you aren't fine-tuned, if you aren't very structured and clear on your message, you put out content that doesn't exactly relate to one another. It's not going to relate to previous content. It's not going to relate to all of your viewers. So what's going to happen is that your viewers eventually kind of fall off because your content isn't consistent and your viewers are looking for something consistent. And that's honestly the best way to keep things moving, forward and moving in a clear path, is keeping things consistent and giving your audience, your target audience, your viewers, what they expect. Because when they subscribe to you, when they follow you, they're subscribing and following to you for a reason, because they like your content. They enjoyed what you put out. And that video, that one video or one podcast, whatever it is that you put out, that you created, that had a very specific message, they're looking for more content just like that. That's the type of thing that they want to see. So again, I hope this all makes sense to you guys. Just trying to piece this all together and taking you through my process of how I went full-time on YouTube. Because again, there's been so many people out there asking me, Zach, how do you do it? How did you do it? And this is behind the scenes. Like, this is part of what it takes. And it's just laying the foundations down for you guys. We'll get into more of the specifics, obviously, and really talk into detail on, analytics and video content creation and, how that process goes and how you really, fine tune your content and really talk to your audience and how you work with sponsors and basically everything that I've did. Basically, we're going to go over everything that I've done from start to where we're at today of being a full-time YouTuber that I think and I know will help you guys succeed, because I've taken a bit of a different route than many people out there. And the route that I've taken was purpose. There was a purpose behind it, and it was a very driven route and very specific to what I was trying to do. And we're going to go into a lot of detail on that, because I think that was a key aspect of how I grew my YouTube channel to what it is today and how it's been successful. So we'll get into that. That's today's video, and apologize that these are so long, but that's just part of the process and explaining this stuff to you guys. So thank you guys for watching. If you watched it all the way through, thank you, and stay tuned for more. As always, take it easy.